Hi guys, I'm Kat. Welcome back to my channel, Catadactyl. Today I'm going to be doing my March wrap-up part 2, and two things. First thing, yes, my hair is blonde now. Second thing, my throat is really sore today. I don't know why. I think like the cedar or the maple trees, the sap is coming out now, and I'm really allergic to it, so it's like infiltrated our house. Yeah, so if I'm drinking my coffee or coffee, then that is why. So let's go ahead and get right on into the wrap-up. So the first book that I want to talk about is The Growing Season by Helen Sedgwick, and this is a speculative fiction novel that deals with a future where the UK has developed baby pouches which carry babies full term through the pregnancy outside of the body. And the company's name is Full Life, and their pouches are known as being safer than natural pregnancy and also allowing both men and women to have a part of carrying the pregnancy through the 9 months. So in this book we follow Eva, who is a daughter born from a pouch herself, although she has spent her entire life like campaigning against the pouches. And we also follow Piotr, who was her ex-husband, who is also a journalist, who is also investigating the pouches and their safety and any repercussions that may come from using the pouches. So overall, I really loved the idea of this novel, and I did not like the execution at all. I'm going to be completely honest and say that I almost DNF'd this book like so many times. So the main problem for me was that there were so many character perspectives throughout this whole novel that I kept getting whiplash. I didn't know who was talking, so I kept having to skim back to see who this person was in relation to the other characters and to who was working for Full Life, who was not, who was at a lighthouse. It was like just kind of a hot mess overall. Even though there were so many characters, sometimes that can be salvaged by an interesting storyline or a unique plot twist or something else. In this, there is no redeemable anything. So 2 stars, kind of don't recommend. So the next book that I read is They Shall Have Stars by James Blish, which is actually the first book in the omnibus Cities in Flight, which I was buddy reading with Rachel from Colonnati, Andreea, and a bunch of other lovely people. I read the first novel in the first 2 weeks, and then my library recalled the ebook, and I wasn't totally fussed about it. So that's like a sign that I kind of don't want to continue reading. The book is from the 1950s, but it is written as speculative fiction for the 2018. I initially found it hard because of the dated writing style, and then I continued to find it hard because of the content. We follow a spaceman who is home from leave for a few weeks, and he goes to deliver some soil samples that he has collected from the far reaches of the universe to a specific lab, and therein he gets involved in scientific and political intrigue and machinations, and we go from there. I think the major problem for me was that the male gaze in this was so heavy, along with really heavy religious and cult elements, and it just didn't manage to grab me. But one of the things that I did really like about it was everything that ever happened on Mars. They're basically building a huge bridge to nowhere, and they're not sure why, and it's like a multi-billion-dollar project, and the scenes of the bridge were very intriguing. The workforce on the bridge was like fascinating. That, along with the way that the first book ended, I rated it 3 stars overall. So next up today is The City in the City by Mieville. We follow Inspector Tito Borlu, who is from the Extreme Case Squad. He's trying to solve the murder of a young girl whose corpse was dropped in his city, Bezel, but the crime happened in a different city, Ulcoma. And normally you wouldn't think that that would be such a huge problem, except that in this book, Bez and Ulcoma are superimposed on top of each other. The citizens themselves have to unsee each other. So for instance, like if your house is in one city, you can only walk a certain way and talk a certain way that would be like the dialect or the tone of your city. And if you happen to see someone who is in a different part of the city, then you have to unsee them and basically like not look and like look down and pretend like you didn't see them. And if you happen to act like you see them, or acknowledging seeing them, or walking in a place that is supposed to be in the other city, even if it is like the other side of the sidewalk, you are in breach. And then creepy, vague breach agents come out of the shadows and basically whisk you away to no man's land. So the inspector is trying to solve this murder, but he can't necessarily go between the cities that easily. And when I started this novel, the problem was that I didn't believe in the premise at all. I was like, psh, unseeing something that is obviously there, that is stupid. And like, how much effort would that be to brainwash the entire city? So I didn't like the premise. I thought it was silly and I didn't believe it. And then Mieville is a very gifted writer, actually. So over the course of the novel, I was like, yeah, that totally makes, yeah, I see that. Okay, yeah, he should unsee him. And I was like, no, he got to me. So that aspect was very interesting. The reason why it only gets 3.5 stars is because the middle part really sagged. Like, it really had saggy bottom middle, and I just wasn't here for it. I think that the novel could have been about 100 to 200 pages shorter and achieved the same concept that he achieved overall. But I will say I really loved Mieville's writing style, so I will be reading more from him definitely in the future. In the last few weeks, I had my last week at my schools, and I have been teaching there for 2.5 years, and I was just a crying, sobbing, teary mess. I was just really stressed and I didn't want to read anything that had anything to do with plot. I just wanted it to be sweet and sexy and that I would enjoy it and I didn't have to think that hard about it. And so I have 5 books coming up that are all romance. So if romance isn't your jam, please go to like this time that's like right over here, and then I will talk about books that are not just straight romance. Yeah. But let's go ahead and get into the romances that I did read. So the first one I read was Down by Contact, a new release by Santino Hassell, which is the second in the Baron series, which I love the first one, and I'm trash for Santino Hassell, so take my money. So in this one, we follow Simon, who is the quarterback for the Barons, and he has just come out, and he's been really surprised at how supportive his team and the football community on the whole has been, except for this one guy named Adrian who keeps leaving him nasty comments on social media and basically kind of being a jerk about Simon coming out. And they get into like this nasty social media site like fight. Then they are assigned to basically be benched and do community service at the local community center and teach football to the youths. So this goes about as well as you would expect, and it was cute, it was quick. Overall, I gave it 4 stars just because I think my Santino Hassell bar is raised so high after Evanfall. And then I was like, okay, let's move away from football and let's do something else. So I was like, oh, let me get some Tillie Cole. So then I saw that she had a series going on that is called Hades Hangman, and it is about a motorcycle gang plus cult followers. And I was like, what? Please tell me more. So I got the first one, which is called It Ain't Me Babe, and yeah, I'm not a fan of the titles. In this one, we follow Styx, who is the leader of his motorcycle gang. He actually has a very serious speech impediment, so he actually uses sign language throughout the entire novel. And the other main character that we follow is named Salome, and she is a cult escapist. So she doesn't know about the world, and she's trying to figure out where she fits. And as you would expect, the motorcycle life is the complete opposite to her cult life. I gave it 4.5 stars. It was great. And then, because I'm trash for Tillie Cole, I immediately bought the second one, which is Hearts Recaptured, number 2 in the series. And we follow Styx's best friend, Kai, and then another cult escapist, Delilah. And this one I liked less just because I'm not a fan of Kai, and I gave that one 4 stars. It was still great. But I mostly read it because I saw that the third one was about my favorite character in the motorcycle gang, Flame. Hello guys! So this is actually Future Kate. While I was editing, I realized that a huge chunk of this video had gotten lost, so I'm just gonna pop in, fill it in, and then it will be back to me in the t-shirt. So then I immediately picked up Souls Unfractured, which is the third one in the series and features Flame and Maddie. Flame is my favorite character in the whole series, and I just love him so much. He is kind of seen as the craziest one in the motorcycle gang because he has a lot of past trauma and mental problems that he's working through, and he got his name because his parents told him that he had flames growing under his skin, which made him different than everyone else, and he tries to purge that through various means. So overall, I gave that book 4.5 stars. It was amazing. Then I was like, okay, I'm trash, so let's read the next one. But I didn't, because I saw that the 4th book featured one of the villains of the past 3, and I was like, girl, no. I can't root for a villain as a main character in a romance. So I was like, okay, well, we're gonna take a break, but I love Tillie Cole. So I decided to switch series, but still stay with Tillie Cole. So I read Raze, which is the first in the Scarred Soul series, and we follow a young boy who is put in a facility where they train boys and men to fight to the death, where people bet on who will succeed. They give him drugs so that he forgets his past, and all he has written on the wall is New York City and then a certain name and revenge. So when there's a prison break, he gets out, he goes to New York to seek revenge. I gave this book 3 stars overall because it was predictable and repetitive, and I expect way more from Tillie Cole. So if you're gonna read Tillie Cole, I recommend Hades' Hangmen way more than the Scarred Soul series. So the next book that I read was The Wasp That Brainwashed the Caterpillar by Matt Simon, and this I gave 4 stars overall. So this is a delightful nonfiction read about the bizarre ways that animals have evolved in order to better fill the niche in the environment. So we get a lot of prey and predators in this book, and each animal has a unique evolutionary skill or talent or body morphology that is explored. And each animal gets 2 or 3 or 4 pages. The first page is an image, and then the next pages detail the delightfully bizarre trait that they have. So from naked mole rats that have possible cancer research talents to louses that eat the tongues of fish, there is a lot to explore in this book. But the thing that was the best about this book was his sense of humor. He was absolutely hilarious, and he knows it. But he's not one of those writers where I'm like, oh, he just thinks he's funny. No, he's actually really funny. So I highly recommend this for anyone who likes science, is looking for a good laugh, or likes the 2 of those combined together. It's probably the best funny science writing I've ever read. So the last book is the best book I've read in a very long while, and it's Let the Right One In by John Lindqvist, sorry, who's from Sweden. And this book is actually from 2004 and was later translated from the Swedish into English. And this book is phenomenal. Set in Blackberg in Sweden in 1981, we follow Oscar, who is a 12-year-old boy, and suddenly a boy is murdered in the woods and drained of all his blood, and Oscar wishes for nothing more than that would be one of the bullies who are tormenting him at school and making his life a living hell. But it is not, and he suddenly becomes more occupied with the new girl who has moved in next door. She is younger than him, and something is off about her. She has never seen a Rubik's Cube before, and she smells bad, dirty, maybe like rot. I freaking loved this book. I was totally surprised by how amazing it was, and that I had never picked it up before. So it deals with so many different issues. General self-existential anxiety, general anxiety, fatherlessness, divorce, alcoholism, pedophilia, self-mutilation, genital mutilation, and murder. And that seems like a lot. It totally is a lot. There are so many different storylines that are like weaving together throughout this narrative, and if it had been in less deft hands, I think it would have been a real hot mess. But to the contrary, it was super, super good. Overall, I gave this book 4.75 stars. I took off a little bit because there were a few historical elements that I thought could have been left out, and those scenes alone dragged for me. When the end finally happened, I was like, oh my god, like what's gonna happen? I'm nervous. It's been such a like long journey with all these different characters and all these different storylines, and I'm nervous that if it wraps up badly, I'll be like, why did I waste my time like investing in all of these characters? But no. Like, in the end, I was so satisfied. It's one of those books where, like, it's longer and it's kind of more complex, so you have to pay attention. And then the ending is so great and satisfying that it's just like, oh, like, perfect, perfect, good job. Yes, yes, yes. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked it, please give me a thumbs up or hit the subscribe button. It would really mean a lot. And without further ado, I hope you are having a lovely day, and I will chat to you later. Toodles!